Hello, everyone, and welcome to this NUEL and Hitmarker partnership event where we're going to be talking all about preparing for the job hunt. I did the intro like six times because I'm not a professional and don't know when to take my cue, but I am Will Whittingham. I am one of the content team here at Hitmarker. They don't trust me to come onto streams unaccompanied anymore, so they sent along Cam, really, the content lead and my boss, to join me on this. Cam, how are you doing today?
Good, yes, here to moderate you, make sure you don't get out of line. No, just here to speak about careers, speak about jobs, and speak about the site, because we do a lot of speaking events where we talk about cover letters, where we talk about resumes, but there's actually a lot of ways that people can use Hitmarker smartly to, inform your job search, to make it easier, to make you spend less time searching. So that's what we sort of want to speak about, and just introduce people to the sort of parts of Hitmarker they might not have seen, and just sort of how they can use it to their benefit, yeah.
Absolutely. This event is quite unique, and I think it's the first of its kind for us at Hitmarker, where we're going to be giving you some of our hottest tips and kind of insider knowledge in a lot of different ways to help you with every stage of your career hunt. So as Cam said, we talk loads about resumes, cover letters. We've done multiple events that are deep dives into those topics, and I'm sure we're doing events like that very, very soon in a deep dive sense. But we're going to be not only mentioning a couple of things in those areas, but also how to be using Hitmarker most effectively. And there's a couple of topics towards the end that we very rarely talk about. We're going to talk about job interviews. We're going to talk about how you should be laying out emails when you're sending applications like that. We're going to talk about taking rejection in your job hunt as well. And basically, this is a kind of, if you're applying for jobs in esports and gaming, or you want to be applying for jobs in esports and gaming, this talk, the next hour and a half, should give you a couple of key tools that you can use in order to make that a reality. And if you want to be hearing, or you want to know anything specific in any of these areas, please drop us a question in Twitch chat. We'll be watching that one throughout the event to make sure that we are kind of tailoring to what the people watching the stream want to see. But Cam, we are probably two of the people who see the most esports and gaming resumes throughout our time. Obviously, I've been at Hitmarker about 18 months. You've been at Hitmarker for 17 years. What would you say, before we get into the nitty-gritty, is the most important one piece of advice that you've ever given to someone about applying for esports and gaming jobs?
That there's still a job at the end of the day, and passion for games is an asset, but it's not what's going to get you through the door. You're still applying to a company, you're still applying to, fulfill a certain role at that company and to manage certain responsibilities. So yes, passion for games is fantastic. It's an asset. It shows you know the industry, but you need to have those professional skills as well, because you're going to be working in a professional setting. So I think that's something that's just sort of in terms of like approach, because often we'll see resumes where, the focus is on all the lands people have been to. It'd be on, when their first gaming memory was, and all this stuff about their history in gaming, which is great in a sort of conversational sense. It might be great to bring up in an interview, but it's going to be the hard skills that win you jobs at the end of the day. So that's really what to focus on in sort of all facets of the job application process, and then use the passion and the love for the industry as sort of like as an extra touch.
Awesome. I did that because I'm going to have to write an article on this piece after we're done, and I wanted to make sure that we got a good soundbite to start it off so that people would read the entire article. But Cam, a quick one about you, actually. Let's introduce you a little bit, because why should the people at home, why should students, why should job hunters in esports and gaming listen to your advice on these kind of topics?
Yeah, so I've been at Hitmarker now for, what month is it, June? So 3 years and 2 months. So I joined when we were just a four-person team in Newcastle. Now we're a 15-person team spanning the whole world. Now we've got employees in Portugal and Ukraine. So yeah, definitely sort of seen my fair share of esports jobs, like you say, Will. So yeah, we've seen so many jobs of these, and we've seen so many resumes and cover letters, and more importantly, we've seen so many hiring managers, and we've spoken to so many hiring managers about what it is they look for when they're hiring in their company, what makes a candidate stand out, what skills they most like to see, whether sort of risky resumes work, whether they don't. So it's all of this sort of all the conversations we've had, all the documents that we've seen, and all the jobs that we've seen is really just sort of amalgamated into us having a really good sort of lay of the land of, what people are looking for in esports, and sort of how to show that in the best way possible, so that you've got the best chance of working in the scene and, finding the best job that you can, and sort of building the career that you want. So it's just through conversations over the years, that's really where I think you learn the most, because these hiring managers are trying to fill these roles. They're asking us, hey, how best to advertise this? How do we, write out this description? And we're like, well, what are you looking for primarily, all this? So it's just conversations and speaking to people and hearing what they want and what they look for in candidates, that just gives us all this sort of relevant information about an industry where there's not really a sort of, a tread and path in terms of where you can go. So that's sort of where we try and sort of fill in and just kind of provide information where there isn't a great deal of it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And of course, lots of evidence there that you are the person to ask about this kind of thing. So let's get asking, let's get discussing some of these topics. We've got 9 topics that we're going to be going through as we go forward. And at the beginning of each section, I'll just quickly remind everyone to ask questions about that, and we'll keep an eye on chat so that we can answer them at the end of each section. But because of time constraints and because there's so much to get through, we are going to be whizzing through quite quickly. So make sure to be keeping your ears open. Don't worry if you can't stay for the entire thing or you miss a couple of minutes. There will be a full VOD of this available on the Twitch channel right here with NUEL, and there'll be a written article with the highlights as well. But Cam, hitmarker.net, the website that everyone in the chat should have used before, and if you haven't, go use it. It's a great tool.
That's all right.
On the surface, it's a very, very easy site to use. I think our dev team is exceptionally amazing at everything they do, and making the site very easy to use and interact with is a key part of that. But you could go a little bit deeper into some of the things that we have on the site that make the job hunt a little bit easier, because it can be quite easy to miss. So let's talk about filters first, because before we came on, you said there's so much that we could talk about on filters. Why don't you explain to me why they're so important and what job hunters should know about them before they get onto the site?
Yeah, so when you first land on Hitmarker, you'll be on a sort of homepage that introduces us, and then you'll click through and there's a button that says View Jobs. And when you load this, it can look a bit overwhelming because at any given point we're going to have over 10,000 positions on the site. So you come through and these are all displayed in a single column list, right? So you're going to be seeing senior software engineer positions at Rockstar, or you could be seeing internships at an esports company, and everything is just in this column of information. And we've actually heard that a lot of people enjoy how that's laid out because it gives them a very sort of holistic and a broad overview of the industry, because they can scroll down and they can see what these game dev companies are looking for. They can see what positions esports companies are hiring for. And we often hear, like quite frequently actually, that people can use Hitmarker as a sort of a tool just to see what companies are up to in the industry. If Fnatic is expanding into a different region, for example, they might be hiring within that country. If we're expanding into a different region, we're going to be hiring within that country. So what we hear from people quite frequently is they use the bulk list feed of Hitmarker just as a sort of overview of the industry, because if you are looking for which companies are experiencing growth, what companies are up to, really, they know which ones are focusing on revenue, which ones are focusing on whatever it is, you can actually really see it through the hiring activity. So that's something that we actually hear quite frequently about the main job feed. But when you certainly when you're searching for a job that suits yourself as a professional and as somebody that has a select area of skills, Liam Neeson, you can't look through the entire list, right? So you need to filter it. So on the left-hand side of the site, we have a set of filters where you can search by company, location, sector, experience level. I probably missed one, job title. And these are super, super important to use to just make your job search easier. Rather than having to wade through 10,000 jobs to find your dream career, you can look through 100 instead, or 50, or however sort of precise you make it. So in terms, obviously, NUEL, esports focus. So instantly there's a button on the left-hand side of Hitmarker that will just show you esports industry jobs. So, and a note on sort of filters, everything within the filters has been categorized there by our team. So that's why we purposely do this, to make it as accurate as possible. Because one thing that's super, super frustrating that I'm sure everyone can sort of relate to is when you're looking through a job and you see that it's entry level and you're like, fantastic, entry level, this is what I need. But then it says 3 years experience. And you're like, well, that's not entry level for me. So we at Hitmarker, we do take very seriously the filtering of jobs and the sense that we want everything to be categorized within our definitions. So the people who use our site regularly, they can visit that entry level filter and they know that we're going to have checked it and make sure that it belongs in that category. So anyone watching for the NUEL, esports is definitely going to be the first filter to press, I think. So that's going to show you our esports industry jobs. But then from there, you can either look through everything, because with that, there's probably going to be sort of maybe 800 to 1,000 positions in the esports category. So it's certainly, that's maybe sort of what, 20, 30 a day. So you can go through that as like a, it's not a mammoth task to check that every day. And that will just let you know, again, what companies are hiring. You can maybe see if actually, no, I won't go down that route yet. You can see what companies are hiring, and as a sort of broad overview. But NUEL, obviously being a UK-focused company like ours, if you are based in the UK, you can refine the search instantly just by hitting in the location filter box, just filtering for the UK, and instantly just got only UK esports jobs. And that's going to be a fairly small amount, so that's going to give you can easily search through that and see if there's anything that's going to be relevant to your profile. But then further from that, you can then take that from UK and esports to the UK esports and entry level and junior level jobs. So now you're only looking at those that are at the sort of more sort of entry level part of the scene, for those younger professionals, those graduates. And then from there, again, you can then take it to contract type. So if you're currently tied up in school or university, you could search just for freelance and part-time jobs. If you were looking for something as an internship, you could do that. And it just gives you that sort of freedom that you can make a filtered list, which will always be a URL. So it's going to be a URL in your web browser that every time you go into that filtered list, you've got everything that's going to be relevant to you on Hitmarker. So it's a sense of just going through the website and building that, using sectors as well. So we have currently 56 sectors on the website, that is going to change soon. Where, if you're good at, writing, you can maybe put in social media marketing, community management, and editorial and writing as 4 sectors. And those are all going to be sort of within your main strength. So you can put that in. And again, it just gets you this super, super hyper relevant list for you of positions that are going to suit you. Mm-hmm. And then another last thing on this ramble, now that you've got that web URL, you can then set up email filters, which actually a lot of people I think don't know about. Mm-hmm. So once you've got any filters on Hitmarker, it could be a single filter like esports, or it could be 10 filters that go down to your home city, your best sector, all of this stuff. If you then scroll right down to the bottom of the filter list, there'll be a button that says Save Filter. If you click on that, you'll give your filter a name. So it could be like most relevant or top positions, whatever it is. And then there'll be a little toggle that says Send me email alerts. And you can toggle that to select either daily or weekly alerts. And then you're going to get, like I say, either something as broad as just esports jobs to your inbox every day or every week, or something as hyper-focused as esports jobs in London for juniors that are software engineering positions and part-time contracts. Not going to be a great deal of those, but when they pop up, you'll get the email. So it really is important to make sure you get the most sort of filtered list for you on Hitmarker. And then just utilize the emails, like just let us do the search for you. You do the work once, find out what you'd want, and then just get the emails. It's a lot easier, and it just means that you can rest easy and you won't miss anything. So that's one thing I think with filters that some people miss, is that it's so easy to just make a sort of regular email list for you of jobs that should be really suitable to your profile.
Absolutely. I think that is something that I didn't know about fully when I was on my job hunt and then going through, because we love it when you come back to our site every day and scroll through 800 jobs or 1,000 jobs. But if you know what you want to be doing and where you want to be doing it, it's so much easier just to set up an email filter. So you don't have to keep checking back, because hey, if there's an esports management role, or if there's a casting role that that's in the right country for you, that it's going to be sent directly to your inbox. And then you don't have to be like, searching through Hitmarker, maybe you'll miss it. Maybe you'll miss a couple of days and won't get there before it's filled, because some of the top roles do get filled really, really quickly or inundated with applicants, because you'll know that you'll always hear about it on the day or the week. I would suggest not setting up a filter that's just esports, like on the daily, because your inbox will explode. Like, do not do that. I would say that if you want to be doing filters, have your most specific filters on a daily. Then you can have slightly broader on the weekly. So maybe just have your UK esports, your favorite sector, writing, for example, have that as your daily. Maybe have a weekly which includes remote roles, maybe part-time and freelance stuff if you're mainly looking for full-time, and just widen it a little bit, and then check back to the site to see if there's anything slightly outside of that really piques your interest, because we love people coming to our site. We love people getting emails from us and utilizing these features, but don't try and get 7,000 jobs sent to your inbox every day. That would be a mistake. I wouldn't endorse it. And it is really interesting you mentioned as well, talking about how one thing that sets us a Hitmarker apart from other sites is the whole everything is curated by us. To put in a reference, this week we've had multiple multi-person conversations about individual jobs and individual sectors and what they should be categorized as, to try and give the best opportunity to our users. Where would this sector be categorized? What should we be doing with this one? Is this job actually esports? What's the definition of esports? Should it be in this area? And so you could kind of rest easy knowing that if you see something listed as a certain sector or a certain contract type or a certain seniority level, that it's going to be that level. It's going to be in that area. You're never going to be applying for a job and then coming into it and being like, this isn't what it was meant to be, because we've already checked out the job application. If you go into a role and it's not what it's meant to be, that's on their end for sure, because we spend a lot of time, a lot of man hours, myself and Cam, trawling through the jobs, making sure that everything is the best it can be for our users. And yeah, Hitmarker is a great tool. You should definitely use it. I think the classic one as well that we should probably just mention, and it's something that I believe we try and advertise quite a lot, is the seniority level on jobs. So if you're coming straight out of university and you're looking for that first step, entry level is between 0 and 1 year experience. So if you've got less than 1 year experience in esports or gaming or whatever sector you want to go into, entry level jobs are for you. Junior is between 1 and 2 years experience. So if you say had a couple of internship roles, or you worked a little bit outside of esports and want to come in, that might be the area to look in there. And I mean, with entry and junior, I think there's quite a lot of overlaps. If you've only got 9-10 months of experience, say you've only done a gap year worth of work, you can still probably try and sneak in with junior experience as well. Intermediate is 2 to 5 years. So if you're looking for your second job, or you basically had a grad job outside of esports but want to respec into an esports space, that's probably the area you can look at. And that's a very broad. We have loads of intermediate jobs on the site. And then senior is 5+ years, where if you're a little bit more experienced, then you can kind of go for those jobs. But with senior, it's a bit weird because that includes anything that's above 5. So there are jobs on there that require 12, 15+ years of experience, and stuff that just requires 5. So kind of when you're writing your resume, and we'll come on to that a little bit in a few minutes, it's about kind of counting up and seeing how much experience do I have? How many years do I have? And then looking at everything below that threshold, unless you're right at the cusp, in which case you can probably look at a bar up as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I think if you nearly meet the requirements, then you should always apply, because you never know that daunting job that has that more experience than you, it asks for more experience than you have. You're not sure what the application situation is like for that position. You could easily put together you could put together a fantastic application. Only just miss out on the experience requirements, but if you're clearly a qualified candidate, if you can clearly do what that company needs you to do, I think there's going to be a very, very small number of people that are going to discount you based on, technicality. Oh, they've got 3 months less than we needed. I think always take those shots, even if you're not quite at the required level, because if you more or less meet it and then impress in other areas like a portfolio or a cover letter, or just what your actual experience is, like even if it doesn't meet that level, certainly apply anyway, because it's that common saying is that you miss every shot you don't take. And when something is a sort of, if a great job comes up in esports and you don't quite meet it, but you know that you do great at it, apply anyway. Tell the company why you do a fantastic job, and just see if anything comes from it, because companies really will notice a good candidate, and they will. I do think most companies would make concessions on just a few months experience not being there.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm much more negative on the you miss every shot you don't take mentality, and I would say that if you've got 1 year experience, don't apply for something that requires 4 years experience. Really, like there's certainly a boundary. But if you've got 1 year, 11 months, and it's asking for 2 years, don't let that kind of thing put you off. Because as Cam said, you never know what level of candidate they're going to get for that application. And worst case scenario, usually it's just a case of you weren't right this time, and no one's really going to hold it against you if you're going a little bit above and you're not lying about that kind of thing. But Cam, let's move on now, because this is a topic and kind of a heading that we very, very rarely talk about publicly. And I don't think anyone really talks about it publicly, but is kind of a really crucial part of the application process and the job hunting process. It's when you have used that filter, you've got that ping in your email box, you've got this amazing job in front of you where this looks awesome, right sector, right seniority level, it's in the right location, let's go. Reading the job listing and understanding how you can use this job listing, because a lot of people will just see a really awesome job. They'll see it's the right seniority level and they've got some of the skills it takes. They'll get their cover letter, copy and paste it onto a document, and we'll get to that. They'll get their CV on Hitmarker CV, obviously, because that's what you should be using. We'll also get onto that. And then you're just going to fire off an application with your email. And that isn't how it should be done, is it?
No, the job description should be open with you as you apply and as you craft your application, because a job description is like, so obviously, so on the base level, the job description is, you know, what the company needs. But if you look at every single bullet point, that's a facet of that job, and you can really use that to inform how you apply. Because if a bullet point is so up your street, you need to mention that bullet point by name and tell the company, hey, I can do this fantastically because I did this in the previous role, or in school I was, you know, this I was in part of this society, and I made us, you know, I increased our revenue, or I increased our recruitment, or I increased. And however you can show that you can meet a certain criteria of a job, which is shown in those bullet points, certainly utilize that in your applications. And you can only do that by sort of really analyzing the job description and having it open with you as you apply, rather than sort of reading it once, closing it, and just forgetting about it. It should be with you as you apply, because it really is a crucial tool to help you make the best application possible. So what we mean by this is, so job description, let's just say it has an intro, a requirement section, a responsibility section, and an outro. In the requirements, if you look at the requirement list, more likely than not, the most crucial requirements the company has of a person are going to be right at the top. So those first 5 requirements, that's likely going to be what's most important in the role. So you really want to look at those and think, okay, what can I match from my profile that's going to show me as a suitable candidate to do that function, right? So if the first few bullet points were, you know, set up a social media calendar, send out an email newsletter, and, you know, another sort of marketing function, create a paid campaign. If you can go, okay, well, I can prove that I can set up social media campaigns because of this thing that I've done on my own, you know, on my own time, or this what I did for my university esports team, or however else you can show the ability to set up a social media campaign, you really want to utilize that in your application. So you want to pull that out of the job description, put it in your cover letter, and mention it by name. You know, I'd be able to set up your social media campaign with ease because I've done this before, or I did this to great success at this company where our engagement increased by 30%, 50%, 100%. Whatever you do to show that you're a qualified candidate to do that function, it's so crucial, because it's that thing of show not tell, isn't it? Like, you're not telling somebody that you're a great social media manager. You're showing them you've got the exact sort of aptitude that they need to carry out a certain part of the role. So that's one way to use job descriptions, is look at the requirements, work downwards, and see it as sort of like as a priority list. You know, they're going to start off with the most important things. It's usually going to end off with the not least important, but maybe the sort of the less common parts of the job, the stuff that isn't going to occur as frequently. So certainly use it like that, and that's really going to help you as you apply. And yeah, I think that's what I'd say on sort of job descriptions. Definitely, and use them when you're writing your cover letter. One thing I often say to people is, write your cover letter with the job description open alongside you, whether that's a different tab, or if you can, like a second monitor, like if you do have a 2-monitor setup, because it'll just let you, as you write the cover letter, just pull out aspects, you know, oh, they need me to use this program. I've used this program for 2 years. I'm going to mention that. And then boom, we don't need to train this person. They can use this program with ease. That's a tip by their name, right? So job description, super important. Write your cover letter with it open, ideally. And as much as you can pull in from that job description, within limits, obviously, you don't want to just sort of tick off every single thing that they ask for.
And just be like, I can do this. Yeah, please hire me.
Bullet point, indented bullet point. Yep, can do this. Proof. Within reason, use it. But it's so powerful at showing the company that you can do exactly what they need to do. And that sounds simple, but it really is overlooked sometimes. And companies will notice when you've written it with their job description up in front of you, because it will just show through.
Absolutely. And there's I've seen a couple on Hitmarker recently, jobs where it's been a case of the job description's written and it's reasonably long, it's got a lot of points, and near the end it'll say, when you're applying, use this, like mention this phrase in the email, or mention this phrase at the beginning of your cover letter to show that you've read it. So if you're not, you're getting your resume thrown out immediately, because a couple of companies are using these tools, and there are other interesting techniques that I've seen from a few companies as well, where like the job description will have typos in it, or it will have something a little bit strange, and it will say, tell us what's wrong with this job description, or tell us the 2 times that we misspelled words, or something like that. And it's an interesting one for sure, but if you want to be working at that company and getting that job, you need to be reading the entire job description at least once. And I think an extension of what Cam says and how I used to apply for jobs when I was actively hunting is I'd copy and paste from Hitmarker the job description into a Word document. Like, but I'm an old man, so you can use Google Docs, and just go over to the requirements and the skills section and what they want to do, and just highlight anything that you've done in the past or have experience with in one color, and then look at everything else and kind of highlight anything where you can talk about it or you have comparable skills. Because as Cam said, if they ask for some, let's say, video editing software, they ask you to be able to use Movie Maker, and you've never used that, but you are an expert on Sony Vegas or a similar software, highlight that a different color, because you can mention in your cover letter, I see that this role is requiring some video editing skills. While I don't have the specific skills with Movie Maker, I've got several years with Sony Vegas. And while they're not directly comparable or they're not directly the same, there are going to be some skills that transfer over, especially those that aren't software specific, like X, Y, and Z. And even then, it's a case of you're not showcasing that you've got that skill, but you're showing that you've read the job description, you've taken the time to do this research onto the situation, which is the bare minimum a company will want. And you've turned it into helping you highlight another skill that you might have. So it's something that I don't think enough people take into account. And I think a part of it is this idea of not tailoring everything you do on an application, thinking that one resume is enough, thinking that one cover letter template that you switch in and out different paragraphs for is enough. But realistically, if you want the best opportunity to apply for a job or to get a job, everything in that application will be tailored. It's very rare that I hear people saying, I got this awesome esports or gaming job, esports especially, with a copy pasted cover letter and a resume that didn't take into consideration the job post, because that's not really how it works when you've got hundreds of people applying for the same job. You want to be able to stand out and you want to make it as easy as possible for the hiring manager. And if you create your resume and cover letter with the job description in mind, it's so easy for a hiring manager to look down and go, tick, tick, tick. This person could do all these things. They can go to the next stage. Because realistically, they don't need to know your life story. They don't need to know exactly everything about you, because they'll find out more about that in the interview. They just need to know that you're a capable candidate and that you can showcase yourself well. And doing this and working with a job listing whenever you do an application is the easiest way of doing that. But we'll move on to this next section because I feel like we might get bogged down. So I'm going to have to be on timekeeping duty for this one.
No worries.
Resume tips. We talk about resumes all the time. It's one of our most talked about topics at Hitmarker. Externally, we've got amazing written articles on it. I talk a lot. We do resume reviews where I talk to people about their resume specifically and how they can individually improve their game across the board. But let's try and keep it to a couple of points. Let's just choose the top most talked about ones internally. So Cam, talk to me. Actually, let's talk very quickly about Hitmarker CV before we go into in-depth advice, because talking about Hitmarker CV might be one of the biggest pieces of advice we can give.
Yeah, so Hitmarker CV is really nice because it gives you, I mean, sort of like the one sentence description we'd always use for it is it gives you a very clean, professional, modern looking resume with very, very little effort. So you don't need to spend hours designing something. You don't need to spend hours, worrying about formatting or anything else. Hitmarker CV is it's a web-based document builder on our website where you can put in all your information, upload, write all your experience, your education, your skills, all of this. And then at the end, you'll generate a static web URL, which is based on your Hitmarker username. So if your Hitmarker username is Cam, then your Hitmarker CV URL is going to be hitmarker.cv/Cam. You can use that whenever. You can send that off to, companies. You can put that on a portfolio, for example, as a clickable link. So a company can always access your resume from your portfolio. And you can also download it. So, we didn't just try and keep this to ourselves. You can make something on Hitmarker CV. You'll have a link that you can get to from, like I said, hitmarker.cv/your username. But you can also download it as a PDF, so you can use it elsewhere. Don't just have to use it on Hitmarker. It will break our heart, but you can use it on other job websites. And it just means that you can make something professional, modern, and that looks really good, and you're not gonna get marked down for any sort of sloppy formatting or anything. And it really is quite quick. We'll mention though that it is currently in beta phase, so we still have a lot of feedback that we've had from people in our Discord about features that they want to add, issues that they want to sort. So it's by no means perfect yet, but even the sort of base level of the product is good and it's free. You should check it out. It's good. It's hitmarker.net/CV. If you've been struggling with putting together a CV or a resume, this is going to really help you out because all the design work is taken off you, so you can just focus on putting down your professional skills and your profile.
That is very true. And it's great in a couple of other ways as well. One thing I will say, which is not advice that I've ever heard given, is that with Hitmarker CV, if you're looking to apply for multiple different jobs that don't line up that well together, so say you're looking at two jobs, one of them's a journalism job and another one's a casting gig, for example, you can still use Hitmarker CV. Just download whenever you make an edit and just name it my CV, Will Whittingham CV, brackets writing, or brackets casting, or brackets software development, because then it's a case of, or even because you should be tailoring it every individual job that you're doing, Wilwitgum CV Hitmarker if I'm applying to Hitmarker, or NUEL if you're applying for a job with NUEL. It's so easy to just have like a bank of these CVs that you can reference back to, and it means that you don't have to worry about people going onto the site and seeing, oh, I've linked my Hitmarker CV for this job with NUEL, but actually I also just applied to Hitmarker, so a lot of my stuff is specific to that job description, which isn't going to work so well for something a bit different. So you could download multiple different variants of it. It's all good. You don't need to worry. And also, there's a helpful list of all of the sections that you want to have in a resume. So we're not going to go into that in depth here, but there's plenty of articles and stuff around that topic that you can find with Hitmarker. But it basically just gives you a template and an outline of how to write a CV in a very nice, easy to access, free piece of software. It's completely online. So if you don't want to download anything, you don't have to. You can keep it all on your internet browser. But Cam, what is your Cambrially number one resume piece of advice?
Number one. So I might be pinching what you were going to say, so apologies for that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm prepared for this. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's achievements over day-to-day responsibilities. It's whenever you speak about job position that you've held, it's not saying, that you managed the bar, that you spoke to customers, all this stuff. It's that you gave great customer service and learned how to speak to people. It's that you worked within a team of 4 and maybe that led some sort of part-time shift duties. It's that you it's that you had like good performance from your manager, that you best employee of the month sort of thing. Any sort of achievements from a job position that you can highlight is going to look better than just saying what your job like duties were. This is especially true in sort of performance-based jobs. So if you're applying in like sales and marketing, for example, rather than saying, manage client relationships, if you can say drove revenue to increase by 40% over year on year, or if you're applying in marketing and rather than saying, set up email campaigns, you can say revitalize the email campaign strategy and increased engagement by X%. This is just, it's using examples and it's using past achievements to back up what you're saying. And it turns you from a candidate that says they can do this to a candidate that has past experience and past success at doing a certain thing. So number one tip is always achievements over responsibilities, because it's just so much more eye-catching when you've got these stats, you've got these figures, and it means a company can they can see what you've done and they can see what you've achieved, and that's going to tell them more about how you can affect their company. And if you just wrote about the list of duties that you've done, because often from a job title you can sort of gauge the duties. So really what you can highlight that's going to set you apart is achievement. So I think that's probably the main one I think that's going to help the impact of the document and just sort of frame you in the best sense possible as a professional, I think.
Yeah, 100% agree with those points. And I think something that is very notable with that is if there is any way of you putting stats or data or numbers into your experience to show that you can do something, make sure you do it. And it's not just about sales and business development. Loads of other sectors can allow for this to happen. So if you're in social media, what's the following on your social media account like? What was it when you started? What is it after 6 months, 12 months, however long you've been at the company? Because showing that you can grow a following is really crucial for social media, because that's what a lot of companies are looking at you to be able to do. There's loads of other ones. If you're doing writing or SEO stuff, how many people view your articles? How many articles have you written in what length of time? Because that is what people are going to care about in writing jobs. And saying that you can grow a social media following, or saying that you can write consistent articles that get views, it's fine. It's not amazing resume stuff, but it is saying that you can do what they've asked for. But saying, I grew this company's social media feed from 2,000 followers to 8,000 followers in the space of a year, which is a however much percent growth, is really, really good. And it's still telling them the same information. They're still guessing that you can help grow a following on social media, but now there's evidence of that. They can see this person isn't talking nonsense. This person has actually gone and done it. And this is the kind of person that we need in our company. So you did steal my point a little bit, Cam, but I've got another one. And this is a classic. Cam's going to love this. Skills. Okay, Cam knows where I'm going already.
We like skills.
Listing your skills, awesome. Please do. Please tailor them to the job description that you're looking at, because they want to be able to see that you can use specific software or that you've got these skills. But one thing that always gets me down is when people are applying for a role and they send us a resume, or I look at a resume and it's got a skill section which is 20 bullet points long. That's all just like, I'm a great communicator, I'm a team player, I'm a leader, I can turn on a computer. Like, please, please, please keep your skill sections short, sweet, and tailored to the job description, and specific and impressive. A lot of skills, unless they're asked for very directly, are not going to be worth, you're not going to gain any brownie points with a hiring person by saying that you're a great leader without any evidence. And if you want to showcase that you're a great leader, again, link it back to your experience. Talk about how you led a team and did rotas and were in charge of a number of people in your previous job. That's where that lives. And then the hiring manager can see you're a leader. Just writing leadership in the skill section doesn't achieve anything. Saying that you're capable of using Microsoft Word 2008, anyone can use Microsoft Word 2008. And unless that is specifically asked for in the job description, it should never, ever be mentioned on your resume or CV, just because it doesn't add anything. It's taking up space. Your resume is meant to be a one-page document, 2 at very most if you've got a ton of stuff to talk about. So there's no room for you to add stuff that isn't relevant to a specific job. So if you're looking at a software engineering job rather than a writing job, your ability to write copy should probably be fairly low down on your list of things to add, if at all. And vice versa, if you're looking at a journalism job, your ability to code in Java, probably not that relevant. But I would argue that your go-getter attitude is never relevant in that situation and should probably never be added. And it's annoying, but I think if you sit down and say, I need to get 6 skills onto this list that are good and add value, you'll be surprised at how many skills that you've built through experience that you can put down there that look much more impressive than these kind of soft or nebulous skills. Rant out of the way. I like to have that rant every couple of months just to get it out of my system. With resumes, this is the document that's the most sought after and most sent off with every application. It's very rare to find an application that won't ask for a resume or a CV. Cover letters, Cam. I know far fewer of our users send them than probably should from experience. What can you tell me about a cover letter? What is a cover letter? What makes a good cover letter, Cam?
So I think a cover letter it's a way for you to put some personality on an application, and it's a way for you to speak directly to a company. So yeah, they've got this resume, which is, a sort of bio sheet about yourself, about your professional life and your professional experience. But a cover letter is your chance to say, okay, so you've seen my professional experience. Here's why I'm actually going to be a fantastic job title for you. It just lets you go into the specifics. So it allows you to draw in stuff from your resume, match to the job description. It allows you to speak to the company and tell them, you're hiring for this. I'm going to be a fantastic this for you because I've done X, Y, and Z, because of my ability to do this, because of my proficiency with this software. So a cover letter is the customized, tailored way of you saying to a company, this is why I'm going to do well at your job. And I think where its value really comes in, I mean, it's always going to be valuable, but I think, especially for junior candidates, a cover letter is really essential because it allows you to sort of back up any points that you might not be able to put on your resume. So if you've not got, the most experience in the world, if you've not got, what's something they're asking for in the job description, a cover letter is where you can sort of let your personality shine and sort of highlight anything about your background, about your profile, about your experience that's going to put you in a positive light that you may have not been able to sort of mention on your resume, or that your resume might not have accounted for. So let's say you only had like 9 months of experience, but that experience was very high quality, and that experience was incredibly relevant to the position you're applying to. The cover letter is the chance to speak about that and really sort of drive home why you're a good fit for this job, even though you might not be the most qualified person for it. Also, if you're just coming out of education, a cover letter is a chance to speak about experiences from education, experiences from outside of education that are going to let you perform well in the workplace. And that's something that your resume can do to an extent, but your cover letter, because it personalizes it and because it tailors it, your cover letter is super important for, like I say, junior jobs especially. Any jobs that have written communication, so whether it's PR, marketing, community, social, writing, anything of that, a cover letter is your chance to showcase your communication skills. And like I said, it's just a way to back up your resume with your own touch on it and show the company the person behind that document and why you would do well in the job they're hiring for and in their company in general. So I think that's really what a cover letter is, and I think that's what you should aim for it to achieve.
Yeah, 100% correct. As per, I was never expecting you. I hope I now have to say actually that's wrong, because that'd be a little bit awkward. But
just redact the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's like everyone just ignore what Cam is saying. He's incorrect. But in this case, he's absolutely right. I think I'm going to jump in quickly with my piece of advice because you stole my last one for resumes.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
And this is a broad point which applies to the whole application process, but especially the cover letter. This is where I see this error take place the most when I'm reviewing documents for people who have asked for advice, or I'm looking at stuff that's been sent to companies as applications. It's something that I was a bit criminal for when I was applying for work as well, and I got called out on it a couple of times. Proofread your cover letter lots of times before you send it. Once over is not enough in order to proofread a cover letter, because so often something in the grammar will be a little off, or you'll get a couple of spelling mistakes. And these are very small things, and by and large, if you're spelling one word incorrectly in a cover letter, it's not going to end your chance of working with that company. But you don't want to give off either an air of not really caring, because finding grammar mistakes and spelling mistakes is pretty easy if you just sit down and out loud read your cover letter to make sure that everything, you're taking breaths where there's punctuation or all this stuff. And also in some sectors and some jobs, let's say social media, writing, all of these kind of things, marketing, your written communication skills are super important. And there's nothing more ironic than someone saying on their resume, I am proficient with communicating internally and externally, written and verbal, and then them not using commas and semicolons correctly in their cover letter. Because then the hiring manager's going to sit there and go, this is clearly not true. What else isn't true about your application? At best. At worst, they're going to think this person's not the person for the job because they've misused all of this grammar. So with your cover letter especially, you're writing a fresh one for every single application. You should be. Make sure you're writing a new one for every single application. Just go back through, make sure that all the grammar is correct, make sure all the spelling is correct, read through it a couple of times. The document isn't that long. A cover letter is only about a page, maximum 2 again. And realistically, you want to be aiming for less than a page for a cover letter. And just make sure that everything's in place, because otherwise you could be the perfect person for the role. You could have all the skills, you could showcase all the skills on your application, but just because your written communication skills weren't there, or you were just in a rush and didn't use the right wording, you could lose out on a job. So make sure you're doing that. It's super easy. It's a very easy way of quickly improving your applications across the board. Cam, very quickly, cover letter advice from you. What are we saying?
Yeah, so I was just thinking as you're speaking, I think one area where it's often, there's not a really sort of clear way to do something is in the cover letter salutation and its sign off. So this is how you sort of introduce the cover letter, like what your first line is, and it's also how you sort of how you exit it and sign off. So, best wishes, Cam, yours sincerely, Cam, whatever it will be. So I think what we often say with salutations is try not to go too sort of formal in esports. There's actually a company that hires on Hitmarker that literally say in the job description, do not address us as to whom it may concern. Like they specify that. And that's obviously, as Will was saying earlier, in sort of companies specifying certain things that will disqualify candidates for. They'll be looking at that. And if somebody doesn't follow that piece of advice, then the company's going, okay, they didn't, study this as thoroughly as they should have. And they could discount you based on that. So try and avoid sort of being too formal, to whom it may concern or anything like that. I think you want to gauge how formal you go based on what you can perceive from how the company communicates online. So if you look at their social media presence, are they quite sort of informal and quite chatty, or are they quite serious and, sort of like very standard and unorthodox? And I think if the answer is the standard and orthodox side, then I think you want to just go maybe dear hiring manager is a pretty, it's professional. It's never going to risk getting a name wrong or anything like that. And with your sign off, best wishes, best regards, best wishes, anything like that, I think is always sort of universally going to be good. And then if you gauge they've got a bit more of an informal tone, then I think you can go sort of hi there, hi team, hello team. I think you can, because you want to show that you fit in with the company's culture, and if that's what they're acting as on online, then you want to try and match that as much as you can. And again, I don't want to keep on sort of harping back about like communication jobs, but especially in communication jobs, if you're already writing in that brand's tone, then that's sort of it's going to be it's a strong mark. So I think gauge those two parts of the cover letter, the sign off and the salutation, on how the company communicate themselves. And yeah, avoid sort of being too formal, because unlike in other industries, we've literally heard people, say that this really puts them off. So I think you want to be respectful and professional, and to the company's tone of voice as much as you can.
I'm fairly certain that I saw a submission from a company this week on Hitmarker that specified in bold at the bottom, none of that to whom this may concern nonsense, like in the job description. So make sure that you're not being too formal. You can be too informal. We've seen that as well. Like, remember that you're applying for a job at the end of the day. This isn't you're not chatting with your mate, you're not texting. You need to be using full sentences. None of this see you later with just the C and the U. It sounds bad. We've seen it. Like, it still needs to be professional, full sentences. Don't make any very brave jokes. Again, we've seen that. It's not the one. And I think talking about like gauging the company tone and doing your research is really good, because it shows you've done your research to the hiring manager. One thing I would state a little bit is, don't just look at the company's Twitter feed and expect the way they communicate on that social media account to be their company tone that they want to get applications in. Because I know for a fact, if you look at plenty of companies at esports, if you look at Hitmarker, the way that we talk on even across our social media accounts isn't necessarily the way that we'd want to be sent an email for a job application. Like with us, we'd understand it more, and we'd probably be like, haha, I like that, that's good. But for other companies, big organizations that have a social media manager to run their social media, gain them following, create a community, the person who's doing that is probably not the person who's reading your job application. And if that person doesn't understand that that's the social media tone that they go for, then you could be putting off that other person, which isn't always what you want to be doing. So just bear that in mind. Look at more than a Twitter when you're trying to gauge the tone that you should send a cover letter in. But when in doubt, to the hiring manager, thank you for your consideration. You'll be safe. It'll be fine. Feel free to try and crack like one safe joke, because I think you probably get one if it doesn't land. But try and get some personality through, but you can save a lot of that personality for an interview where body language and stuff can help you out a lot more than just in a long piece of written work. Cam, I'm going to let you talk for a while now, because this is a section that when we were planning this event, I sat down, I put it down because I knew it was important, but then couldn't write anything for, because I didn't really know why and how you'd want to do it. So this is one for our creative users. This is talking about portfolios. Cam, when should you include a portfolio in a job application?
Certainly if it's asked for, but definitely in just any job that requires you to be creating anything visual. So graphic design jobs, video editing jobs, art jobs, and if you're playing within the games industry, anything where there's going to be a visual component to the work you're doing, certainly include a portfolio. And I think if you're within those sectors, you should have one that you have fairly regularly updated, or even on camera work as well. So I know you've got a portfolio, Will. So anything where you're going to be on camera as well, you should have a reel of your work. So it's anything where the bulk of what you're going to be doing could be judged by past work. I think you can't send a full marketing campaign to a company and say, well, let's look at this. This is my profile. But you can send people, drawings that you've done, designs that you've made, videos that you've done, so they can get a feel for you as a candidate. So that's when you should send one out. There's a variety of places that you can host this, depending on what discipline you're in. So if you make something like graphic design wise, it could be on ArtStation or Carbon Made or another platform like that. If you're on videos, it could be Vimeo, a private YouTube link, or another video hosting platform. And you can also use your own website for embedding stuff if you're able to create one, especially maybe if you're a web/UI designer, and that could certainly be the route to go. So that's sort of when you want to use a portfolio. In terms of what you should include on it, like what we hear from people the most is, and this was from a recent conversation as well, especially when you're junior, try and hone in your portfolio to a certain discipline or a certain type of this media that you're creating, and show that you're an expert of doing something well, especially if it's the key thing that the company is hiring for. Because especially in junior roles, sometimes showing that you can do one thing very well is going to be better than showing a wide scope of work where nothing is sort of as chiseled in, if you see what I mean. So it's a case of when you're starting out, if you're a logo designer, keep your portfolio to being logos. If in graphic design you specialize in a certain type of design, try and hone in on that and really make the company see that you're fantastic at that. You've nailed one skill, you're going to nail future stuff as well. So that's something that we hear from designers about portfolios quite frequently. And then if your portfolio is on a document, so sometimes we've had people submit PDF portfolios. A surprising number of the time, URLs on that document are either not linked, or the link that is on there is actually old and takes you to a 404 error page, and you're left sort of thinking, I can't access this person's email, or this person's, well, no, email you can just copy it, but this person's website isn't loading anymore. This person's YouTube channel doesn't have an accurate URL. So I think because your portfolio is something that you update like less frequently than a resume or a cover letter, those things can be overlooked because it might have been 3-4 months since you updated your portfolio, whereas you updated your resume 2 weeks ago. So I think just making sure that anything you submit, and this goes across the board really, like if you're hyperlinking stuff, make sure that those links are correct. And even if you've got the opportunity to hyperlink, then you should be taking that, just because it's a bit easier then for the hiring manager to click through, see the rest of your work, and again, just see more about you as a candidate. It takes them one click rather than to copy it and new tab and everything like that. So hyperlink, make sure they work, because there's been several instances where we've seen them not working. And it just sort of, it's not like a huge turnoff, of course, but it just makes you think, they've overlooked that. And it's sort of like what we were saying with earlier, in terms of if you mess one thing up, if you aren't accurate about one thing, what else could you not be accurate on? It just sort of makes you think, is that a trait of theirs, or was this just a one-off? And it's just not really something that you want the hiring manager to be thinking. Like I say, not the end of the world, but avoid it where you can. And then so I spoke a little bit about junior portfolios. I think in sort of more intermediate senior portfolios, you're going to be having a much broader scope of work. I think try and categorize these as much as you can, because for example, our creative lead Laurie, he can do video editing, graphic design, all this different motion design, everything. So I definitely expect someone that had more experience to have sort of categorizations of their portfolio.
Yeah.
So sections on just graphic design, sections on just motion design, sections on just video, because I think you want it to be as easy to cycle through and look through as possible. So especially if you're multidisciplined and you're applying for a job that has in a single discipline, so you might be able to do multiple different things, but your portfolio shows that, again, that this is in the more sort of intermediate senior level, but you're only applying as a graphic designer. Making sure there's a way for a hiring manager to just look at your graphic design work. It's just going to make their life easier, make what you have there much more impactful, and like we would say, hyper focused is what I think you always want applications to do. It is just going to help out and give you the best portfolio you can sort of have. So that was what we had on portfolios. It's not as in depth as the other bits, but I think just make sure as like with the resume, make sure it's all correct, make sure the information is up to date. In the junior positions, see if you can hone it in on a single area, and then in the more intermediate senior ones, make sure you've got sort of categorization and on the portfolio, so it's not just a whole canvas of stuff to look through.
Yeah, and I think the main difference that I'd say in terms of portfolio advice to advice with resumes and cover letters is there's not a limited amount of space, so you don't need to be hyper focused. Like if you are applying for a graphic design job, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't include your animation skills, or your 3D modeling skills, or your photo editing skills, or your video editing skills in that section. Because your portfolio, if it's just very clear what is what, then a hiring manager can go on, they're looking for graphic design, they see the graphic design section, they click on it. You don't need to be updating your portfolio for every single job, because you can just say, here's my portfolio. If you're looking for an animation job, they just click the link that says animation in your portfolio. They see everything. And as you said, creatives and those who can do multiple different skill sets are going to be prized over candidates who can just do one thing. If you're going for an animation role and you can only do animation, versus someone who's going for an animation role who can do animation, graphic design, video editing, that person is going to have a broader set of skills which a company might want to utilize in the future. So even just showing, hey, there's a lot of different stuff. Maybe I'm only looking at animation, but let's have a quick look at their motion design to see how that works. Let's have a quick look at their video editing to see if they're good at that as well. Never a bad thing to include. You can add too much, but it's much harder to add too much information to a portfolio than it is for a resume or cover letter. So just keep that in mind. And the only other little thing I would say is that if you're looking to do something with your portfolio or showcase something with your portfolio, don't worry too much about making it the most amazing, unique, impressive thing in the world where it's not relevant. I knew someone who was making a portfolio to showcase their audio skills, but was learning how to code in order to make a playable demo for that music. When what they're applying for was just music jobs. So you don't need to go into that much. Just focus on the one thing. As Cam said, hone in on that one thing that you're trying to get perfect or get really good at. And don't worry about making a graphic for your audio. Don't worry about making stuff 3D motion designed if you're just looking at the graphic design side of things. Make sure the one area that you're applying for is really good, or the one area you're really passionate about is really good when you're starting out, and then look to adapt and learn new skills as you move forward in your career. Speaking of moving forward, let's move forward. So Cam, this one's going to be quite quick and quite easy. Now, if you've listened to all our advice, you should have a pretty decent resume, cover letter, portfolio if you need it. You go on Hitmarker, you find the job, you click it, and rather than going to an ATS or rather than it staying on Hitmarker, it sends you to an email link. It gives you an email address that you now need to apply with. How should the person get all of this information together via an email and send it over? What should they be doing?
So it depends on. So first, and this sort of goes back to reading a job description. Because with an email, they'll always have to say, like, send us an email with something. They'll often specify what they want you to send in. So follow that to the letter. Like if they mention a file type, send in that file type. If they mention, attaching a cover letter as a PDF, do that. If they don't, then I think you can just by standard, I think, send the cover letter in the body of the email and then attach everything else that's relevant as attachments. So yeah, you want to write your cover letter, maybe that's in Google Docs, wherever that is, just so you can go over it a few times. You're not going to lose it if you close your client or anything. And then, so yeah, cover letter with the salutation in the body of the email, and then any attachments, alongside. So that'll be by standard a resume, which we always suggest putting as a PDF. PDF's a lot easier to open. They're a lot easier to use across devices, and it doesn't rely on someone having Microsoft Word to see it as it's intended, because if you view a Word document on a different program, you can lose formatting and all this stuff can just go out the window. So PDFs where possible. Like I said, unless it's specified otherwise, always follow specifications. And then, a portfolio, if you have a portfolio, depending on what source it is, if it's a link, you can just put it in the body of the email, maybe just after the salutation, best wishes, Cam, here's my portfolio link. Or if it's on your resume, then, or no, if it's a document, sorry, like a PDF, then attach it as well. So cover letter, body of the email, and then attachments, resume, and if anything else is requested, send that in as well.
This is the classic one that we've seen a little bit recently. When you're making your resume and when you're making your cover letter and you're talking about how you want to hear back from a company, people will always put their professional work email. This is the standard. This is what you should do. Sometimes you'll put your professional work email from your resume and then you'll send that application off via your noobslayer69xxx email account because you haven't changed your Gmail, because that's the one that you use for your League of Legends account or whatever. Please check which email you're sending your application from before you send your application, because it's embarrassing. Don't do it. And I mean, as an extension, make sure that you've got a professional email account, either first name dot last name at something.com or initials last name at something.com. And when you're sending over your PDF resume, as on you're putting in chat, please send a PDF. Yeah, don't send a Word document or a Google Doc. That's not the one. Naming your cover letter or naming your CV, first name, last name, resume. It's so much easier for a hiring manager to quickly find your information and to store your information. Because if you're just calling something resume, like, you'll know what that is because you've got one resume on your computer. You've got 2 or 3 resumes on your computer. A hiring manager is going to probably get tens of applications, if not hundreds, and they don't want to go through and just see 100 documents called resume, because that doesn't help them. And if a hiring manager wants to look back at your resume, you want to make sure it's as easy to find as possible, because you want them to be in a good mood when they get to it. If it takes them 20 minutes to find it, they're probably not going to be in the best position and best headspace to read your application. Or worst case scenario, they're not going to bother to try and find it again. They're going to go, right, whatever. There are lots of other good applicants. This one we're just going to ignore. So make everything that you send as easy as you can to find, and make sure that everything is professionally labeled, including your email address. But Cam, we've sent off our application now. It was a cool resume. We used Hitmarker CV because we're smart. We had a cover letter. There was a portfolio with really awesome stuff. We sent off this email with all of the information available. And a couple of weeks go by and we haven't heard anything back. What do we it's something that I think we've all experienced in esports and gaming, and just general job hunting. It's not something that's unique to this area, but unfortunately, it does seem to be a little bit more prevalent here than most areas. What should candidates be looking at? Are there specific rules that we'd suggest in terms of when you should be contacting people, if you should be doing that?
Yeah, so it's a tough one. I think everyone's gonna have a different opinion on it because, you can sometimes take the sort of, oh, they've not replied to me, they're not gonna, I've not got the position, not been successful, and that could be the case. But I do think there's an argument for the what if. So I think it is worth reaching out, especially in jobs that are more like, especially to ones that you're super excited about. I think it's so worth asking the question and just seeing if there's an answer for you. So if you've not heard back, I would say after a month. I think a month is a sensible amount of time to wait. I think if you were to reach out, a couple of weeks after sending out your application, I think the hiring manager might be, this person's being a bit jumping the gun. But I think after 30 days have passed, I think it's totally fine to reach out and just say, hello, has there been any update on this application process? I think it's just fine to say, hey, I'm still here. Has there been any update? If the case is that you weren't successful, unfortunately, then you might get that transparency, because obviously one of the huge issues in job searching is that there just isn't any visibility into where you stand often. And then what it also does, it just sort of, it opens up a channel of communication. So it could give you the option to ask for feedback. Company may not give it to you. I mean, every company in esports is absolutely hemmed with tasks, but it could open the door for you to get feedback. And then and this is especially true if you maybe advanced to a different stage of the job process, but then weren't successful in a later stage at the interviews. It allows you to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, which I think is super important, because if you can connect with the hiring manager on LinkedIn, and that you already made sort of it through stage one of the process, you then have that personal contact at that company for if there's future jobs, whether they're full-time permanent, or whether they're even just temporary or freelance positions. You've now got that foot in the door slightly, where you can just drop them a message the next time a job comes up saying, hey, I've applied for this, would love to make it as a part of your team. And so I think that's useful. But yeah, I do think it's worth reaching out, looking for updates after a month has passed, because it's going to give you peace of mind sometimes. Again, sometimes it might just be blank, which is a shame. But it gives you some peace of mind sometimes. It could even, the company might say, yeah, we're still reviewing things, we'll get back to you within 2 weeks or whatever it might be. It just gives you more information. So what I suggest there is, when somebody is job searching, and we know quite a lot of people who do this, is have a spreadsheet that you use, Google Sheets or Excel or whatever it is, and just log whenever you apply for a job, what method that was through. So was that through Hitmarker itself? Was that through email? Was that through ATS? Is there a way that you can follow up? Do you know the hiring manager on LinkedIn or whatever it might be? And then setting a little follow-up date, especially for the email applications, where you just send a little message through saying, hello, has there been any updates on this? Just means that you know where everything stands, you know what you've applied for. And especially, like I said, for those email positions, you can drop a message just saying, has there been an update? And it will just give you, it just lets you track what's happening, and so you're not having to store it all on your head. And it means that you will always be reaching out at sort of sensible times if you are looking for an update.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Having a spreadsheet where you can basically just log when you apply for a job, when you should reach out for feedback, if at all, is a really, really good thing to have, because it kind of keeps you in line and it helps you visualize how much stuff you're applying for and where all that is. Because a lot of people in esports and gaming, especially students in their final years of university or who have just graduated, will be applying for a ton of different jobs. And it doesn't even just apply for esports and gaming. If you're applying for a few esports and gaming jobs and some more traditional work as well, you can keep it all in one place, just link or remind yourself where you applied for that stuff. And it can be a really, really useful tool. I think one thing that should be noted as well is, unfortunately, there are quite a few companies that say, we're sorry, we only contact the successful candidates for the next stage in the job description. It sucks, but don't be sliding into their DMs or emailing them after a month saying what's going on. In those situations, it is a case of they're clearly only interested in contacting the people that are successful for that stage. They've probably got tons of applications. And in those situations, it's a case of you don't want to be contacting them and preventing yourself from being in a good place next time there's a job at that company. Because if they know, oh, this is the person who disregarded what we were doing with our applications last time, they're unlikely to give you a fair shot next time, compared to someone who, after 30 days, you didn't hear anything back. That sucks. Worst case scenario, you weren't accepted and you're not going to get feedback, but that's rubbish. That really is. But best case scenario, they just haven't got over your application yet. And in those cases, I would leave it. But if nothing is stated, or they stated a specific time frame and haven't said we'll only contact successful applicants, as Cam said, make sure to chat with them, make sure to ask for feedback if you haven't been successful, and always be really polite, because this is the classic story. My first application to Hitmarker was unsuccessful, and I currently work here. So clearly I was capable of having a job at Hitmarker at some stage in the future. But one thing that I made sure to do is when I was unsuccessful, I emailed the hiring manager, Rich. Hi, Rich. It's me talking about you on a stream. And I said, massive congratulations to the person who got this job. It's unfortunate that I wasn't able to successfully get it myself. But I really appreciate the opportunity and the time you spent with me during this process. If you've got any feedback for me, that would be amazing. And I look forward to applying and being more successful in the future application. And I like to think that that positive feedback, I got amazing feedback from Hitmarker in terms of what I can look to do in the future in applications and what I should be doing throughout the process. And the next time I applied to Hitmarker, I was successful because I'd got away and I'd changed a couple of those things. And because the way that I interacted was very professional and left a positive light on me as an applicant, as opposed to someone who would be messaging repeatedly about stuff or chasing loads of stuff up when I've been told not to, or even just being dismissive of an opportunity. And I think that it's very, very easy to miss out on an opportunity and be upset by that, and then let that kind of tarnish the way that you interact with people in emails and online. It's at the end of the day, if you want to work with that company at all in the future, you need to be professional in how you come about it and take every rejection as an opportunity to learn and gain actionable feedback. Because assuming that there are going to be some cases where a company doesn't accept you and you ask for feedback and they say stuff that is just completely irrelevant, or they don't get back to you, at which point you've probably dodged a bullet by not working with them if they're that rubbish at helping you out, or they're dismissive of you in that way. Like, it's probably best to just avoid companies like that. But if you get actionable feedback, now you know, okay, this is what I need to do better next time. And even if it's not with that company, it's with someone else, they will have helped you improve. So that is something that's super crucial when you haven't heard back. And I've kind of organically moved on to the topic of rejection, because it sucks to never hear back from a company. It sucks. No, this is an interesting one, Cam. If you're applying for a job, which is worse, not hearing back or getting that rejection email?
Oh, easily not hearing back, of course, because the rejection email is finality, and it's a response. So you know that, okay, your thing was looked over, it was considered, and unfortunately didn't make the cut. You now know that job prospect is not going to happen anymore, so you can move on to another one. Much better than being left in the dark and wondering, what's happening. Just to add briefly on the last point you made, Will, I do think it's a shame when people don't give feedback when it's asked for, but I think ignoring that company completely could be a bit troubling if you're in the UK and there's not a great deal of companies to apply to. Just because I think if you think like of a big esports team that could get 100+ applications, considering we've done feedback for people in the past, it's so time consuming. So I think it's super valuable when people give it, and I think it's super appreciated. But I do think sometimes it can't be given, and obviously it's a shame, but I don't think you can sort of hold it against the company too seriously, because So I definitely think, ask for feedback and aim for it, but I don't think it's not such a mark against the company, I think, when they don't give it.
I don't think it's necessarily. I think if a company, quite often in a rejection email, a company will say, due to the number of applicants, we can't give feedback at this time. But I think there have been examples of it's not necessarily a case where someone can't give feedback because of the number of applicants, but if you're getting feedback that's very poor or it's clearly very generalized, I think in those cases it's kind of a case where you're like, But as you say, when there's only a limited number of esports companies in the UK and so many people are applying, if a company can't give you feedback and they say, thank you for applying with us, you've been unsuccessful, we're afraid we can't give you any advice further at this time, then obviously don't go chasing for that feedback and don't be like, how dare they not send individual feedback to 200 people, because it is very time consuming.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. On the topic of rejection, it is, just that nothingness is just the worst, because you're left there wondering, you don't know where you stand, you don't know where you got there, and you've no idea of knowing what to improve as well. Rejection, it is awful. I mean, We do have plans in future to try and sort of help that just sort of like void of not hearing anything. So we do hope to implement something like that in the future on our platform, certainly. The rejection is it's dreadful, and all I can say is just sort of try and stay positive, utilize good people around you. We've got a Discord server full of job seekers, lots of people we can speak to. Everyone has the same experience because everyone has had that no response, or that you've had a positive interview and then nothing comes from it or anything else. So yeah, I think just lean on people around you. Try and remember that it sounds cliche, but do try and treat rejections as a learning experience. Although I know it gets to a point where it's just you can't see it as that; it just gets disheartening. And yeah, just try and sort of, if you can, occasionally take breaks. I know it's not possible for everyone looking for a job, hence the nature of looking for a job. But it does get to you, so do just try and look after yourself and make sure that, well, if it's possible, if you're in university and it's not essential that you have a job, don't try and kill yourself getting a job. Look after yourself and do just try and sort of speak to people, look at the situations as an overview and try and sort of learn from it and take that to another application. Which I know it's tough to give advice on rejection because it is so situation dependent, but I think that's sort of quite broad if it does sort of apply to you.
Absolutely. I think Sunken brings up a good point in chat as well. The idea of if you're getting rejected at the earliest stages, as Cam said, quite often there'll be a load of people and feedback won't really be an option. But if you've gone quite late into an application process, if you've had a couple of interviews, and as you said, you're probably more linked to that company, who you've talked to, then being a company not being able to give feedback when they're in a primary feedback thing where you've just sent in your resume and cover letter is much more understandable. But if you've had 2 or 3 interviews with a company and you don't hear anything back, or you get a rejection and we're not going to give you feedback, that's rubbish, is what that is. Just plain and simple. There's no way of sugarcoating it. Like, if there's clearly they're not going to be interviewing hundreds of candidates physically or via Zoom. So if you've got to that stage of the process, you can feel like you probably deserve feedback at that point, especially when it's a later stage. And as Cam said, it can be so difficult to get rejected by something and think this is going to be positive because I'm going to learn from it, and my next application will be better, my next cover letter, my next interview will be better because of this. But the thing that always helped me when I was in a job hunt and unemployed for 6, 7, 8 months out of university was the idea of it just takes one successful application for you to get a job. Like, you could be applying for tens of jobs and you don't get them, but every rejection would hopefully be a chance to improve. And not every single one will be, because you'll send off an application, they will ghost you, you won't get any actionable feedback, and you're not really going to improve from that application. But every time you get feedback, every time a hiring manager takes 5 minutes to explain something that you could do better, you're going to improve very slightly for your next application. And it just takes one for them to be like, yeah, we'll give you a shot, or yeah, you're the perfect person for us. Then you don't need to worry about applying anymore because you've got this job. And as soon as you're on the ladder, it's so much easier to move from one job to another as opposed to getting on at that entry or junior level. So don't let it be disheartening. You'll get there. We'll help you every step of the way. That's what we're here for.
100%.
But Cam, do you have anything else to say about rejection, or shall we move on to our final section?
No, I think we'll go for the final section.
Oh, excellent. Well, Cam, this is again something that we maybe should talk about a little bit more. And I think this is a working remotely kind of point where it's not been the same, and we're kind of still getting up to speed on what this should look like ourselves. But interviews, Cam, what are your top interview tips to help people have a successful Zoom or in person a little bit more now interview to get them that job?
Yeah, so I think knowing the company is very important. And in esports, fortunately, but a lot of us have this base level where, if you're in the UK and you're applying for the likes of Faceit or Fnatic or another sort of large esports company in the UK, you probably know a fair bit about them just because of the sort of small nature of esports. So you'll know, what happened to them 2 years ago, or what's on the horizon for them. So I think knowing the company is quite important. I think knowing the future of the company is also very important. So learning what you can about what's coming up, and what you'd be doing in the role. Because a lot of the roles we hire for, it's often before expansion. Whether it's expanding into the video game market or whether it's expanding internationally, we have very sort of set needs for what we're going to do before we hire. So I think if you know that, you're going to know what the company is looking for you to do. And it's just going to help you answer those questions and make sure that you've got as good of an understanding of the role as possible, which again is just going to help you out in how you come across. And then this is sort of like a personal experience for me as well, always having questions prepared. So with my job at Hitmarker, I remember the interview going decently. Like it wasn't a standout interview, it wasn't a bad interview. But it probably lasted for about 30 minutes. And at the end, Rich asked me if I had any questions. And then I think we spoke for about a further 30 minutes because I had so much stuff I wanted to ask him that like it turned from an interview into a conversation. And I just felt after I came out of it, I was like, wow, that really turned for the better once I asked those questions and made it into this sort of this dialogue of us just speaking about the company and, you know, if there's any competitors, like what's around the company, all this. And I'm fairly certain that was probably a big part of me getting the job was how positive that second half of the interview went, because I knew the company sort of inside out from what I was able to research, because we were a small team back then. And I just had these questions prepared because I know I need to ask about this. I need to ask where their funding's coming from. I need to ask, you know, what's planned for this. I need to ask if they're aware of this company. So all of that stuff came out, and I think it just sort of, the interview went well, but the questions turned into a conversation. It turned into this sort of just an equal chat about, you know, video games, esports, and jobs. And I know that I came out of that feeling super positive. I was like, oh, that really turned for the better once that happened. So, and I think it's sort of across the board, because if a question just allows you to, well, one, it shows you on your homework, which it's sort of like everyone sort of says that, but it really is true. Like it does, you'll appreciate a candidate that has clearly looked for, you know, what you're up to and how they can sort of help you out, and their question should sort of like frame that. You'll notice that versus the person who just says no, nothing to ask, and sort of closes the interview there. You want to end on a positive note, and a question is the best way to do that. So I think when that interviewer asks at the end, do you have any questions for us? Do you have any questions for me? You should always have something prepared. So this should be, you know, this should be a pre-planned thing that you do a couple of days before. Look through the company, think about what you can ask them that's going to spark an interesting conversation. If they're launching a new product, how are you going to fit within that? What issues, what have they done to like prepare against this certain issue? What are they going to do against this competitor? What are they doing better than this competitor? What's the sort of, you just want to look at them and what they're doing, and make sure your question, I think, reflects how well you know the company, and also just sort of how you'd help that company. Because I think, again, question shows that the person isn't just sort of there for the ride, like they're just at this interview because it's a job. They really want to know how they can best help your company, how they can best fit in with the team. So yeah, it's the importance of a question, I think. And yeah, I just think it's a bit of a sort of disheartening end to an interview if you're interviewing somebody and you say, you know, any questions for us? They say no. It's sort of like, I wish we could have had something there. So yeah, it's really is just that, to have a question prepared and make it as sort of interesting and in depth as you can. Because speaking from experience, like it completely changed the dynamic of my interview for Hitmarker, and yeah, when we interview people as well, it's something that we do sort of. If they don't ask questions, we sort of go, It's not the be all of end all. If they've interviewed brilliantly anyway, it's not going to like, you know, count them out. But it's just a little sort of, it's not the best way to finish an interview.
Absolutely. I think that was actually something that I got feedback-wise when I applied to Hitmarker the first time in the interview was I didn't really have any questions prepped because they'd all been covered. All the stuff that I had prepared to ask had been covered in the interview. So I thought, it'll be great if I say, no, I think we covered everything in the interview. It wasn't. Always have stuff prepared so that you can have that bit of conversation at the end. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be strictly very specific to the role. It can be very broadly about the company or about the person that's interviewing you, because you'll usually know that in advance. If you're told who's going to be interviewing you in advance, it's always good to have a little look at them on LinkedIn, just to see what kind of person you're going to be interacting with and to make sure that you know what their role within the company is. Because you can ask stuff like, what's it like to have your role at the company? How did you grow to that kind of level within this organization? Because it shows that you're thinking a little bit into the future as well, and that you've spent the time to look at this stuff. And again, if you're showing that you've done your research, and obviously don't come with a document like, hello, you were born at this date in this area, and you have the 4 brothers and all of this. Like, don't be weird about it. But knowing a little bit about the person that's interviewing you and being able to show that you've done your research into the company is always going to be a great thing. And dress to impress. And by that, I mean, dress the way that they have told you to in the application or in the process. And I don't think it's ever a bad thing. And I don't think I've ever had a negative response from, if I'm being invited to an interview, just asking, hey, can you just confirm what the dress code is? If they haven't already told it to me themselves. Because it's so easy for you to assume that a company dress code is one thing and then for it to be something else. And I've done this in both ways. I've turned up to interviews in a short sleeve t-shirt and like smart casual trousers to be greeted by someone in a suit. And obviously that doesn't make you feel very good. And I've turned up to interviews in a suit where the person interviewing me is wearing yoga pants and sandals. And again, you feel a little bit silly if you're sitting in that room with someone who's wearing like a tank top. So just confirming, hey, what's the dress code for the interview? Is there anything else that I should be bringing to the interview? That's a classic. If it's an in-person interview, you feel free to print out a copy of your portfolio if it's a written portfolio or it's specifically like concept art. As well as you can take a resume and cover letter copy there as well. It's not always something that you need to do. But again, I've never had a negative experience with taking those documents to an interview and just giving it over, because sometimes they will usually have a copy at the interview for them to look at while they're talking to you, but maybe they've forgotten, and you having a copy there shows that you're a little bit prepared. And I don't think that's ever a bad thing.
Yeah, just shows you diligent and
exactly.
What was the thing? Oh, that's literally just slipped my mind. Yeah, and on asking about the dress code, like I say, you're completely within your rights to do that every time. Like, no need to beat yourself up about it when you can just say, looking forward to the interview, what should I be wearing? Like, what's the dress code? So yeah, like I say, never an issue, just sort of clarifying. And if you put your mind at ease and make sure that you won't turn up, and like you said, we'll just do the opposite mirror of the person's wearing, then yeah, 100% worth doing. So yeah, just backing up all that.
Absolutely. And I mean, the classic one, if it's a remote interview, I would still always recommend be wearing something vaguely the same on the bottom half as to what you're wearing on the top half, because you never know when the doorbell's going to ring. You never know when you might have to stand up to stop your cat from clawing your sofa. And like, if it's meant to be smart casual, you're wearing a shirt on the top half, is usually better. If you stand up and you're wearing jeans, that's probably fine. But if you're wearing swim shorts, like I occasionally have done in job interviews, and you have to stand up, you look very silly. So I would recommend not doing that. If it's casual, wearing shorts or whatever on the bottom half is usually fine though. So it's just, being a bit smart about that kind of thing. But Cam, 80 minutes of pure, unadulterated advice coming out. That's
just like being in our Discord on an afternoon, eh?
It really is just being like in our Discord and just like chatting with people. But hopefully there's been plenty in there that you'll have found helpful. If you've stuck with us this long, thank you. We appreciate you. It's a warm day, so we appreciate you spending your time inside watching us talk about jobs. And hopefully there will have been a couple of pieces of information at some point in there that you'll find helpful and will help you go to that next level when it comes to your next job application, whether you're currently in work looking to make a move up, or you're at university and looking for your first graduate job, or you're unemployed and looking to take a step back or first step into work. We're always going to be with you 100% of the way here at Hitmarker. Hitmarker.net to find our site. You'll be able to find plenty of advice and stuff there. You can also follow us on all of our amazing social media, including our brand new, can we call it a brand new Discord now?
I reckon we still can. We've got the vanity link now, so we can now, it's an official way to advertise it. So yeah, I think we can go brand new.
Nice. It's brand new-ish Discord channel. There's actually just been an update in there. So if you want to be one of the first people to see what's going on with that, you can join there. You can find that all over our social media as well. And we love talking about jobs in there as well. So it's a great place. Lots of amazing people in there chatting and having fun and all of this stuff. Cam, is there anything I've forgotten to plug outside of obviously NUEL? But I'm going to do that after we're done with the Hitmarker plugs.
No, I think you plugged Hitmarker brilliantly.
Excellent. And obviously, massive thank you to our partners at NUEL for helping us put on this amazing show. If you want to be checking them out, you can follow them on social media as well as following this Twitch account that you're currently viewing, because they've got awesome events, tournaments, careers events. They've got other stuff going on as well with talks and special guests. So make sure to be checking them out, because they're awesome and they've got awesome stuff going on. They're good. Yeah, across the board. Well, everyone I've dealt with at NUEL is amazing. They could be hiding a bad one somewhere in there, but I don't know. But massive thank you for everyone for tuning in and joining us. Again, if you're watching this on video on demand after the fact, hello. Thank you for joining us until the end. We hope you found this helpful. And we will be back with you hopefully relatively soon with some more amazing careers advice with Hitmarker and NUEL. So until then, stay safe and good luck in your job applications.
Take care, everyone.